Okay, we're live. Back again, folks. This is your host of Lit Literature, JP, aka The Demon, and this feels awkward because it's the first time I feel like we're hosting at the podcast table in, like, forever.
Months.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Months.
Thanks COVID.
Yeah. We did a digital one, and now we're doing another bonus as we're releasing some of our older Dark Tower episodes. And now that the captain has uploaded, finally, the final two sets of data that we need, those will become available as well. So also coming up soon, we've got obviously Mistborn, which we are excited to return back to Sanderson every time we depart from it.
Yeah.
So
Even if it's an older one.
yeah, even if it's an older one,
still good.
Which, by the way, speaking of little Mistborn demo trailer in the front of the Wheel of Time, which we're obviously going to be discussing today, and ongoing, on and off in between different book series, we'll be releasing these episodes. But I always forget how good some of that old stuff is. It's just fun. Speaking of that old stuff, we've got this. So
When did this come out? 95?
Early 90s, I think.
really, was it? Or was it? I thought for some reason I was thinking it was earlier, but it was after Conan, obviously. So.
Yeah.
So before we dive deep into the Wheel of Time, quick introductions from the guys at the table here.
Alright, this is Ben the Hitman, and I'm super excited to be here for the Wheel of Time. It's one of the first series I've ever read. Started back in high school, and it was such a love-hate. I had to wait so long between releases when it was coming out. Now everyone who gets to read it gets to read it all at once, and you're super lucky.
And he did it right, too, because at least, especially towards the end, he was making sure that we were taking care of his fans, which is stellar.
Yeah.
And
So, the cherry over here, we got definitely excited for this. This is, like Ben, one of the first kind of like epics that I really got myself into. Actually borrowed the very first copy probably back in high school, so don't want to date myself, but borrowed it from the Hitman. Had to return it or I would have died, but I did. Yeah. Came out unscathed. And I think I borrowed the first 8 from him before I really got into started buying them on my own.
and that might even be that copy.
That is the copy that I
You can
borrowed.
tell my copy that I've read a dozen times and borrowed, let people borrow, and like this brand new copy Jeff has.
Yeah. Not brand new, but unused. I got it for just owning it, because I was an audiobook guy. And this is actually when I got absolutely in love with Michael Kramer and Kate Reading.
They make a great team.
Because they were awesome. They did all of these books. And that's when, obviously, they continued to work with Brandon Sanderson as they did the Stormlight Archive, which was really cool. So, back to Robert Jordan. So I love this because going back this far, deep rooted. I know, Ben, we talked about it a little bit when we talked about, was it the Warriors of Altai or the Warrior of Altai? I forget the exact name of the book, but it's something Warrior of Altai.
The Warrior of
Maybe if
Altai.
I have it behind us. I should even check. Maybe it's upstairs.
I think maybe it's my copy.
Maybe. I know I have one too. But either way, we did check that out, and it was cool because there were so many hints in that book that eventually became the Wheel of Time, and you could tell they were just not quite
Fleshed out.
Yeah, they just weren't quite there yet, and we talked a lot about it in that podcast episode.
But yeah, there was a lot of ideas, and he built on them, and to make this epic of the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, this I think having more recently read all the Stormlight Archive and a lot of Brandon Sanderson book, I keep kind of wanting to compare this to Brandon Sanderson's books, but actually Brandon Sanderson grew up reading this stuff.
Yeah.
And so this is an amazing example of kind of world building as well, where
Holy
they
cow,
take
yeah.
the amount of detail and thought that had to go into just sayings and lore and stories, and then the detail that's in there isn't even just on the stories, it's on how a story over millennia changes, like thousands of years, and how things degraded and knowledge and changed and stuff, and how you kind of learn that as you're going through all these stories that start out and like, that must have been what happened, it's so cool, and then you start to learn bits and pieces that maybe that's not exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
And
Interesting is, when we read these books, we got to be aware that Robert Jordan has many unique aspects to these books, but he also doesn't break many of the traditional frameworks that we find in traditional fantasy. However, it's interesting to note, I was reading something, I can't remember if it was where exactly it was, but it was saying something along the lines of, when he first wrote this book, they were originally old men when they were starting. Not old men, but like middle-aged to late-aged men. And the publishers convinced him to make them young to fit the normal trope. That was something that I kind of read.
Oh, that's funny. If that's true, it kind of makes sense about how much resistance they give to Meringue throughout the entire series. Because, like, he wanted to write a story where the hero just didn't go off and accept it. He wanted them to resist, like, no, you're bullshit. I'm just gonna slide out the back when you're not looking at it.
But like, why do I have to follow this destiny? This shit's dumb.
But I think he carried that a little too far, and it's just kind of like,
some of the stuff does become
But
obvious.
if they were crotchety old men, it would make sense.
Yeah, because they're stuck in their ways. They already have, like, wife and kids probably, and like, you're full of shit.
Yeah, it's just an interesting little note that I read.
That's interesting. I didn't hear that before.
Either way, I'm sure we could get fact-checked before, because I honestly cannot remember for the life of me the source, but I remember reading it somewhere. And that always found interesting. But we still get to start back with our core cast of characters in Emmons Field. And we're excited because we get to do this episode, obviously, before Amazon Prime's series comes out. And that was kind of important for us, because I feel like we want to be able to enjoy and react to that separate from the books.
Yeah.
I would feel, honestly, if the, like, whatever time next year the show's coming out and then we tried to do this as like a group thing, we wouldn't be doing the justice that we deserve to just the books.
Yeah.
So I'm excited over the next year to try to get the series done. It would be fun. I don't know if we can do it, folks, but it would be fun to get as far as we can down the path before the series comes out, so that we can react to those.
At least we'll have everything at least fresh in our mind, and we shouldn't have anything running over the series finishing, the TV series finishing before we finish the book series.
Exactly.
But man, I am nervous about this series. It's one of my favorite series as a book, and making a TV show is like a dream, but also a nightmare. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of failures.
If anyone's ever seen The Sword of Truth live action adaptation, is probably a prime example where I would be like, I don't want to see stuff go to movies. Yeah. Or Aragon.
The Dark Tower movie they made a few years ago.
Dark Tower.
The entire series into one movie.
Yeah. Well,
they also...
I think you heard us gripe about that a little bit. I think it was us in that Dark Tower episode. But the one thing that we can say is Amazon Prime has also purchased the right to that and is redoing it as a series.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty cool.
But it's good to hear that it's, at least for this, Amazon Prime has money. They're going to be able to back it. And I think there's a bit more of a draw now, especially after the success of Game of Thrones.
Right. Yeah.
Than there has been in the past, where it was picked up by like small little like PBS TV show, like here's for a Tuesday night.
Yeah, not even just Game of Thrones. If you think about Outlander or any of these other like major HBO, Showtime, or what's the other big Stars shows, that they've been sneaky. They've been sneaky about basing them off book series and putting them out there. And you're just realizing now that fantasy can be marketable and sci-fi can be marketable. And I know on the show we haven't done The Expanse yet, but Amazon Prime also bought The Expanse.
Yeah, and they're on season 3, I believe, or
more. They bought 1 and 2 from Sci-Fi, and so now they're doing 3, 4 ongoing. Yeah. So it's very cool to see these shows get money. And
Or at least,
hopefully,
the people with
budget
money.
to-
The people with money being interested, because it's better. They might not put a lot into it, and but hopefully they have the star power to be able to get some good people behind the scenes, because they'll never. I don't think any of these series are going to dump in a ton of money in the first season, because it's. Maybe they will, but it's a risk. They'll dump more money in as it goes. I think that's a
the
good
nice thing with Amazon is they're mostly like a reinvestment kind of company, so we can hope that they might not care too much.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm hoping,
it's kind of.
But like the action has to be good. But in this story, the sword play is a huge part of it.
Yes, it is.
And
Sword plays a huge part.
I hate when they hire an actor and he has no experience with fighting or anything.
Better get a lot of
A
training.
big thing, I don't know if you guys saw it, you probably shouldn't have, the Iron Fist on Netflix.
Didn't watch it.
Don't watch it. But the actor could not fight. All the action is cut, so it's like 30 cuts in 10 seconds.
Ah.
And it's
Yeah.
just terrible.
So it's the opposite of The Witcher.
Yeah. Like
Or
the Witcher
John
did
Wick.
it right. They had cuts in there, but they're hidden cuts, and
Yeah.
they looked like a legit fight.
They did as much as they could with the
Henry
actor,
Cavill.
and he did quite a bit of training. So we can only hope that they got this kid. To be honest, it would be an honor for me to get paid to learn how to sword fight. That'd be
Yeah.
fun. Hey, you get not only do you get to play Randall Thor, you also
Whoa,
get
and
to
in this-
learn sword fighting.
Yeah.
And this could be the start to your
Career.
prestigious career in film
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
knows?
Well, with the first season, there's only a couple really big sword masters or sword people.
You're right. First season, you
less
don't need to
people
worry
that you have to
about
worry
it
about.
too much. Yeah,
But
that's
everyone,
true.
they better be ready in the long term to get
As long
there.
as he looks good hiding that heron mark, he's good.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the heron mark, let's get back to Emmons Field. So, we start out in this book traditional. You're literally in the farm,
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere. And I think, if I remember correctly, it's Rand and Tamal Thor
Yes.
hopping or hiking down, which takes more than a day to get from his farm. Is it the whole day then?
No,
It takes
it
a long
wasn't-
time.
But better part of the afternoon, like
Better
6
part of
hours.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a 6-hour hike to get from their farm to downtown Emmonsfield. And they're going there for the fair.
Well, he's dropping off the wine for the fair.
Yeah, but he's going
brandy.
to stay too. They're going to stay. Cause
No, they
go
went
back.
home.
They
They
were?
usually stay, but since the winter was so
Cold, they had to go back to help the.
they plan to go back. And
Dude,
take
that
care of
feels
the
like... Okay, I forgot about this part too. We got to talk about this for a second. I'm a kid, right? I'm Randall Thor's age. I'm like 16 or something like
19.
that. Is he already 19 in the beginning?
They also
Why
have
do I
19.
suck so bad at
Yep.
this? All right, so he's 19. He's like a kid, but 19 in those kind of days, you're like pretty much a man.
And yeah, plus,
pretty much a man.
well, it's hard to say because there's nothing out there. So the fair is the most exciting thing all year, probably.
I would feel so devastated that
Winter's
he
night.
couldn't stay.
Because there's festivals going on that night, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. They were doing the shearing, right?
thought
Or
it
no,
was-
that was in the
That's
earlier.
day.
The egg
That's
laying.
actually during the day, the next day. They
Oh,
were
so
up there.
I see. They were going to stay for some things because I remember he was going to dance with Egwene.
Yeah.
Supposed to dance
Winter's
with
night.
Egwene.
That would have been the
at
next night.
That's the next night. He talked to her outside of the tavern when they were getting the story.
Okay.
From Egwene's dad.
Yeah. She talked to him and it's like, oh, I'll be busy during the day. And I was like, what are you doing? And then she kind of looked at the pole.
Yeah.
Where all the women who braided the hair would have been like dancing around and like winding the rhythms out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, braiding the hair. Yeah.
Because she just got her hair braided. And that means she's not a woman.
Yeah.
They married at
Now,
age
she's a year
16.
younger.
16, 17.
She's 16,
unclear.
17? Unclear. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because, like, for her, if you think about any, like, not ancient cultures, but most ancient cultures, and also, like, boon cultures out in the boondocks,
They marry young.
16, 17, yeah, they marry young. So that's
Typically, that's actually probably being considerate
I know, I was gonna
by
say.
this author, because that could have been
Historically.
14, 13, 14.
historically.
Like,
But, you know, the wheel
Yeah.
turns. The wheel turns. So they could be the future.
that is true.
Anyway.
So they get into town, deliver the wine, and you start to
the
brandy, yeah,
And cider.
and you kind of start to already get like little stories of stuff about like kind of what's going on in the world. You run into the mayor, which is Egwene's father,
Egwene's, yeah.
Egwene, her I'm all reader. So you get her father is talking about like the whole Aes Sedai, and he talks even a little bit about doesn't he talk about the dragon? There's a new
they don't talk about it until the peddler comes.
Patton Fane.
They just talk about like the weather and whatnot, and then Matt shows up with talking about a badger, and you see how young they are. They're gonna release a badger,
kids.
and like scare some girls.
You know what I like about this setup is, I don't know, I think it's Robert Jordan's skill, but he kind of like opens the world up, and you don't often feel, at least I didn't feel, at least at this early books, that he was just like pumping stuff into me, right?
Yeah,
like it was more like gradual. The nice thing is that these kids were so young in Boondocks that it set the story up nicely for the world to have to be explained to us as we went.
Yeah, because we learn through them when they learn stuff.
Yeah, because
like all the views are like backwards, kind of.
Yeah, and they're in farms out in the middle of nowhere that it's like they get excited about a peddler that comes once a year to sell the town stuff.
Yeah, and I got some needles.
He's literally like a celebrity to the town because he's the only person who's been anywhere outside of what's it called?
Edmonds Field.
Edmonds Field, yeah. The whole the towns and the areas.
I think it's Amon's Field. Like it's Emmons. They call it like it. Over time, it became Emmons Field, but I think it comes from the name Amon, who is like the old King Amon.
Yeah, from Mythandril.
Something like that.
What was the original?
Probably won't be able to say that.
Yeah. It's probably best if we don't.
It's probably best if we don't.
Mythandril.
We could grab the glossary at the back of book 1 if we really wanted to.
I'll be our fact checker.
But that's always the problem with fantasy books when they have an old tongue language. It's, how do you say this?
Yeah.
When you're reading it, it's very hard because you're just like, that sounds right, and then you hear it, and you're like, wow, I'm way off. Yeah, that's it.
Mynetherin, that's it. Yeah, but I always remember too that in the audiobooks, sometimes, although Kate Reading and Michael Kramer are usually like on point, so they like confirm exactly how to say most things, but every once in a while they don't, and then the next book they have to fix it, and then that drives you nuts because you got used to hearing it a certain way the whole time, and then you're trying to change it.
Oh, it must be horrible. I'm the one who reads all these books, and I literally have nothing until you guys correct me for like the entire podcast. Because I get so used to saying this. Like, one of the really funny things is Hermione from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
You say Hermione or Hermione?
Hermione. That sounds way more normal to me. Actually, Hermione is more normal because I've watched the movies and stuff. And
Hermione.
But the entire book series, I think I pronounced that Hermione.
Yeah, it's funny because during the Goblet of Fire, the German.
Yeah, he calls her Hermione. I called her Hermione or something. Or
she added that how to say it just because people were unsure.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yep, but if you're not doing the audiobooks, it's a rough life.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Josh. I've read them so many times, the names are stuck in my head one way.
Yep, and then you guys say it here, and I'll keep the rest of the episode, I'll keep saying it. But that is one of the things, too, that, like, this book, I mean, I don't know how these authors do so well at creating all these fake places. You think they would have run out of names, but, like, Mynetherin and, like, just, like, Sheol, like, the names that he comes up with sound so good, and just the whole the world that he builds is just so good.
So I like the setup in this because you get to like ease into the story and learn with these characters, and then we get a lot of introductions, right? And we get a real quick vibe that there's two camps in Emmons Field. One is the women's circle, and the other is
the men's council? What is it? The
city council.
The
city council.
The city council, yeah. Which is or town council. It's the men, those are.
But it's basically a man and woman, the two power groups, and everything.
And you'll see this theme a lot in these books, and it's the power groups, and it's really interesting because Emmons Field is backwards. So they have a city council, primarily of men, and then the women's circle is kind of like a power in their own, but they're still not the primary power. Whereas if the rest of the world, because of the Aes Sedai, are predominantly women powerhouses.
I say it's 50-50. Because Andor is true, that's a 100% run by a queen.
Andor, yeah.
But
Came on.
Tia is 100%.
They got the men. Yeah, they have the council.
That's
or
all
whatever.
men who are the High Lords. I don't think there was a woman.
You're right. The tier is men, but
Up north, like the Lord.
Banner Lords.
Ilion.
I know
What was
for-
Ilion? The Bay. Ilion is the Bay.
It was also
Pirate
a council, and they.
More balanced.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously,
yeah. But I know up north, because at the end of this book they visited the borderlands, and the Lord was a guy, but he was also very respectful of Aes Sedai,
yeah.
and so he would have bent over and like listened to anything she said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Aes Sedai, they have a ton of power, but in Emmons Field, they just are dark friends.
Well, it's one of those things where it's too. It's
Everybody's a dark friend, and
Yeah.
All outsiders.
nice blue hair, dark friend, kind of like that, right?
I mean, it's they build up this. He intentionally builds from the beginning a lot of this this strife between men and women, which becomes a very continuous event through the entire series. But I think it's I like the subtlety that it starts out. I feel it does get a bit forced the more you go through the series, but it definitely just you've got the women's council and the men, and you get snippets from each side where the women are like, the men will never listen, we're just gonna have to do it our way anyway, and the men's council is like, you know what, they're gonna butt in, but we need to just put our foot down, and then they never do, which is hilarious. But the subtlety, like how it starts out, I like a lot, and I think it's a really good.
It's
way
funny.
of
I don't know if it's this book, but I want to say. Maybe it was. The man got some advice. One from a man, one from a woman. And then it's like, the man said, just let the woman have her way. So she thinks she's in charge. And then when it's something important, you get to make the decision, put your foot down. And the woman said the same thing. We just let you guys have your way until something important.
But it really ends up, every single thing ends up being the important thing that they need to put their foot down on.
Yeah. That is one of the
By
things-
they, who do you
yeah.
mean?
Both sides, men and women, literally all the time are just this is the one thing I have to put my foot down about. And it's
It's interesting, because this is one of the first series that I read that had a really strong woman characters.
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings,
oh
not really. They had,
Well, you could argue
They just want
some of the
elves,
elves were pretty.
yeah, but they just one part of the story, really. They
They were the backstory. Yeah, it was kind of side characters.
Here there
I'd say.
were there's a lot of strong female characters, even if they tug the hair a lot.
Out of frustration.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, actually thinking about it for the time, this could be a woman empowering type story too. There's definitely one of the few series that what you said that actually has these women are pivotal in saving the lives and really getting shit done.
Leading nations.
Leading nations.
I mean,
Yeah.
they certainly are super powerful, and it's cool the cultural twist that Robert Jordan puts into these books with the tainting of the male side of the one power, which, if you think about any kind of a fantasy book, magic is so potently powerful, and this one has had 1,000 years. Or has it been 3,000?
3,000 maybe.
3,400 or so. Anyway, it was a huge amount, right? Several thousand years of essentially women only.
Yeah, half of the power is unusable almost.
And so it totally changed the power dynamic, which it's really interesting to see how he kind of bakes that into the culture.
Well, and it's a cool thing to think about too, that it probably wasn't necessarily something that started out this way, men and women having to be against each other. And I guess maybe there are a couple things that are kind of sewn in there, but if you have a system where one half of the magical system, particularly because of men, is completely tainted and unusable, you're going to have a system where people oppress that side. So then there is going to be this strife between, a break between, men always have this chance of being tainted, going insane. They're the half that is...
Not a chance, it just happens.
But they have a chance of becoming a caster or a user of magic that could go insane. So even if you wouldn't say it's not all men's fault, but anyone who uses the power from the men's side will go insane and will destroy, cause death and
Because
destruction around
it's
them.
not their fault, because some people are born with the ability and they're going to channel whether they want to or not. Mm-hmm. Granted, it's a lot rare now.
Yeah.
But so these men, they had no choice. They'll do it, and 75% of them will die because they won't be able to figure out what's going on. But the 25% who live,
The naturally gifted ones, too.
Yeah.
and they'll go insane eventually and have to be gentled.
Yeah.
Now we meet in Emmons Field because of the fair. We meet a few other people. We meet Tom.
Oh, Tom. I love Tom.
And fantastic character. We
Yeah,
meet
well,
obviously Moraine.
Yeah. Let's just go through Tom real quick.
Let's go
Since
Tom,
he's right
yeah.
there. He's the first person they meet. Well, I guess Pat and Fane is.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
the
Padon is
first main
first, but-
character kind of outside the town.
But
Good old Padon.
the town hired a gleam man since the winter was so bleak, and it's super rare occasion for them. So we got Tom Mullen, who comes in the middle of the night, knocking on the door, which is probably like 10 o'clock, honestly.
Yeah, that's
For
true.
the back end town, yeah.
The mayor, who's the innkeeper, was like, he's lucky I even let him in. But in a normal village, like a big village, 10 o'clock, that's prime time for
Drinking and
whatnot.
Also, who knows how far he had to go?
Yeah, he does come in a bit complaining about being in the back of the boondocks, like had to go way out of his way for this, but
But he puts on a little show, telling like all the stuff he can do, like, oh, I bet you with your big shoulders can't even pick me up, and I need a pretty assistant for my show, and picks
yeah.
Green.
yeah. I think that the introduction to like these gleemen, and we kind of find it maybe a bit more out in later books, but gleemen being these almost like jesters is kind of how I thought of them. They have these
Bards
incredibly
almost,
colorful kind
has
of
a
cloaks,
patch-colored cloaks,
patch
yeah.
cloaks that are just all these different colors, so they're instantly distinguishable. You can always recognize them. And they're just like these traveling storytellers, like musicians, storyteller, jugglers. Like, I'm wondering, we haven't met any in the other in this book at all. But you're like, are they all like this? Are some of them more specializing in music or magic or like different types of, not necessarily magic, but like stage hands, like
Right. Well, Tom
juggling,
seems
stuff
to be
like that.
pretty like good at everything.
Yes.
Like he's playing clearly great music, juggling, magic tricks,
And
sleight of
storytelling.
hand, storytelling. Like he's pretty much good.
It's
at
kind of
all
interesting. I feel like the Glee Man is also kind of like an oral historian for especially places like Two Rivers. Well, the history's kind of not there. Through these stories, they learn some history, even if it's embellished, because they're not going to get any chance to learn anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they even talk about a little bit that books are pretty rare in Edmondsfield.
Yeah.
So like everyone who's got a book is pretty much, or like everyone, they pass the books around. Everyone gets their chance to read the books in the town, and there's a small collection of who's read.
Yeah, the mayor
book.
has a larger collection with like 20 books.
Yeah,
And the
Jeff
mayor.
would have been.
I know. Jeff would have been.
Yeah.
I'd be loaded.
Yep, get that.
And the mayor happens to be the inn owner and also Egwene's father,
Yes.
which is kind of fun. Egwene
yeah.
being kind of right at this point a wisdom in training in
Yeah,
a way.
that
right?
and also Van's love interest.
Yeah, they definitely got little
They're pretty
crushes
much
on each other.
engaged.
They probably grown up around the same age, and they just their families being like both respectable people on the council.
But yeah.
I think
They
they're-
talk about it and how they're like practically engaged, but not officially.
Yeah.
And they both assumed they'd marry each other.
And everyone in the town had that same.
Now the cool thing here is in the beginning they also are pretty clear at like gradually highlighting differences between Rand and the rest of the folk in Emmons Field.
Rand being tall as heck.
Yeah, super tall, light haired, lighter skinned.
No, isn't he darker skinned?
He's lighter skinned.
Sure.
Yes, he's lighter skinned.
Rand was darker skin and lighter
He's
hair.
lighter hair.
Kind of.
Okay.
He has like
Lighter
reddish hair, right?
Yes, he's got reddish hair, and the reason that he's lighter skinned is because he's not in the desert with the rest of the skin, which would be different. And that was an interesting cultural flip.
Or
that
in the
Robert-
palace with his other half.
Yeah, there you go. It's an interesting cultural flip that Jordan did by placing a Nordic Irish culture as a base in the desert, which is really kind of interesting because of the fact that they nomadically went there and stayed there. And that was an interesting choice. So people from Emmons Field tend to have dark hair, dark eyes, and they're not dark in complexion, but they tend to be darker in complexion. And I think in the show, they're going to make them dark in complexion, actually.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. And it doesn't, like, I'm like all for that a little bit. And then Rand is this tall, red-haired, light-eyed person in this area. It reminds me of like being in Japan, kind of. So he sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not too common. They don't. I think they comment on it, but they don't make it seem awkward because everyone accepts him.
Well, they already did because
he grew up there
as a baby.
It's more other people coming into town notice the difference. They're like, who is this? This guy stands out.
Well,
whereas for the whole town, they're like, just Rand.
Well, that and when he goes to travel, he gets mistaken for.
Yep, an ale.
Some other
yeah.
Specifically an Aiel person.
Aiel.
A few times.
Aiel. Yeah.
Aielman.
Yeah, we talk about that with the ogre. I can't remember.
Yeah.
The Ogier.
Loyal.
Yeah.
And also Elaine and Gawain call him. Gawain says you'd be the spitting image of my Aielman.
Yep.
If you were wearing
the garb. Yeah, because he was surprised when he said he came from Edmonds. He was like, I thought they were this of skin like this, look like this. You don't seem to match that.
But it's pretty cool because Jordan does some interesting things with this a little bit, because not only did culture shift around the world, so Jordan thought it would be interesting to like put certain people in different areas than maybe they would be traditionally at because of the way that life shifted after the breaking, and because of everything that happened. So like you might have been historically where it would make sense to be one spot, you're kind of no longer there. So it's kind of interesting because he did that in a few spots, but then he thought, how would the culture change then if it was based one way and to another? And he did a lot of that weird kind of thinking, but then he also did something with like, what are you naturally? How are you like genetically inclined to be as well? And so he did that a lot with the Emmons Field people, with this like stubbornness and this and that, and like this kind of like hardiness that they have, and certain other factors. They even have like certain I wouldn't call it like benefits against magic and poisons, but like they tend to be hardy people, and they explain some of that throughout the books.
Yeah, they're very hardworking. If the storm comes and knocks down the house, they'll like roll up sleeves and just build it again. Yeah. So just like whatever, it's just the way it is.
They talk a lot about Rand and his people that are quick of foot as well.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Aiel people don't ride horses, but we'll talk about that when we get to the other book.
Yeah. But then the next people, Moraine and Lan, they meet.
Moraine and Lan.
The two people, probably the most pivotal people in this book who sort everything out and give coins to Matt and
Rand.
Perrin and Rand.
Actually, all three of them,
Oh,
all three of them get a coin. Perrin was there. They all three got.
No, he got it. It was Matt and Rand, but Perrin got it later. Separately.
Yeah, it was just some kid with them.
Yeah,
14 kid.
Yeah, and they gave him a coin, but it obviously wasn't because they were looking for someone specific based off of a date of birth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Rand, Perrin got his later.
Yeah, and it's interesting the description of them. Moraine being a lady who has her everyday dress was finer than the fanciest feast day dress
of everyone in the village. Yeah.
And just like more poise and wisdoms or like all that stuff. And people, it's weird because even then, like people naturally defer to like.
Yeah, like the first thought, I think they were like, is this like a queen? Like, oh my gosh, a royalty? Like, the bearing that she has is just immediately identifiable. Yeah. Like, this is not someone that you just kind of, like, whatever. Like, this is an important person.
Because even Rand and Matt, they both, Matt bowed or tried to. very awkward because he never tried to bow to anyone before.
Yeah.
And then
quite
Rand's
notice.
like, oh, maybe I won't bow. And they
Wow,
didn't
you
know
look
what,
really dumb, Matt. I'm not gonna do that.
but they didn't know what to call her. They're like, Lady Moyang.
Yeah,
Or like, my lord. They wanted to say
lady.
something. She's like, no, let's call me Moyang.
Yeah. Well, it always helps that she has this extremely intimidating, powerful guy named Lan behind her.
Oh, jeez.
Just waiting to smite somebody.
I know,
He
right?
has like a cloak that subtly changes colors with the background. So a warder's cloak essentially, but they don't know what it is. But it makes them almost like your eyes just like pass right over. Or there's like a floating face there.
But
Nearly.
you know that's an awesome toss out to Lord of the Rings and J.R.R.
The
Tolkien
invisible-
and the cloaks that they use, the Fellowship,
the
used,
the
the Lothlorien, cloaks or
Lothlorien,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really kind of a fun thing. But yeah, I remember that too. And Lan, like, I just love the way he's like depicted. To be honest, it's pretty badass. You definitely wouldn't want to mess with him. That's for sure.
I still get a little bit confused about him and like how old he is.
He's 55.
Okay, he is
He's in
55.
his 50s.
Oh, him and
50s. Moyang's in like
Nynaeve?
41.
yeah, Nynaeve. I thought that whole relationship.
Moraine doesn't count though. She's Aes Sedai.
Well,
Yeah, she's like near not
he
more.
might be in his 40s. I just looked this up earlier today because I was curious. And Moyang's like 43 maybe. Neither Lan's like the same age or like 10 years older.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up. But I didn't. That's one thing about the series that I felt was too much was the relationship that they slowly start to get.
Really?
Yes, I thought it was too forced.
She's 23.
I thought that, like, literally, I don't remember, like, thinking back on how it happened in the past. I remember, like, reading this and being like, oh, they're like, I know it's eventually going to happen, but they're subtly hinting, and then all of a sudden she's just, like, crying, and she's like, I don't want you to go because I love you. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
It wasn't really like that.
That is exactly how it was.
It was more like,
Oh,
I got some statements.
We're gonna
here.
flirt a little bit and make eye contact, maybe like 4
She's
times
from
in the
Evans's
story.
Field, Josh. That's a huge deal.
But still, I thought that whole.
And also,
I thought she fell for him really fast,
Yeah.
but also, I mean, it's not implausible. People do it. People are like that. And she's had to be reserved for a long time since she's been to Wisdom. She had to be, unapproachable. So she couldn't date. She couldn't dance.
Also, everything that she liked about herself before she was a Wisdom, Lan noticed and commented on. He would be like, "Wow, you're really good at tracking," or this or that, or "You really do that really well."
He never actually complimented her on any of this stuff. He just would smile and nod when he realized, or look surprised when she did something that he wouldn't expect, which was what she got.
It's essentially
It's an acknowledgement of his skills, especially coming from Landers.
A few times he did say something like, "I'm surprised that anyone like this could, or anyone
Follow
from
my
here
trail.
knew, could follow me."
He said it one time that, and it wasn't a comment, it was just a statement. And it was a compliment.
But it was totally under, they were having this whole thing go under the radar, and I thought Jordan did that well.
Yeah.
I thought it was too much because I thought that it was going well, under the radar, and you could feel it. No, I thought it was going well, but all of a sudden, literally, they were both just he's like, I would give up everything, but I can't. I'm my life will end in death. And I can't give that to you. And it's this is the first time they ever had talked about it.
Well,
was just that they're.
I do agree with you, Josh. It's I can't give you a widow's dress for your wedding dress.
Yeah.
That had a lot more to do with the fact that he was the old king of the Malkai or Malkari.
It's just his
That he knows he's gonna die in the blight. That's
his
his
war
what he's supposed to
with the
do,
blight.
Yeah. But the fact that he was just being it felt to me like they're doing this flirting, and you're things are building and I like this, and then all of a sudden they just talk and he's like, yeah, we can't get married. I'm like, whoa.
So here's why I disagree. Because I felt like he did an ingenious job of making it be. It's something going on kind of on the side. You don't really know because you're not really following Lan as a main character. You're occasionally following Nynaeve, and you get how much she's kind of digging it, but that's super rare throughout the book. Mm-hmm. For the most part, it's all happening subtly. You're not really paying attention to it. And so then when he makes it highlighted, you're you're like, whoa, okay. But I mean, they were subtly digging that throughout the.
They were.
Yeah.
I agree with Josh though that it went from a little flirting and like a crushing into all of a sudden I can't marry you. I have nothing to offer you. But
yeah.
I think that was Lan just like really shitting on her dreams hard to get her to like kind of.
it might have been.
But still, but him to be like make that assumption.
But also even Lan was very like if he lived another life he would have married her.
Yeah, was kind of what he was trying to portray.
He just like actually felt something for her.
Oh, for sure.
And like, how could he feel that much for that time they were together? Just a little, like, because apparently he has women throw themselves at him all the time, and he'll sleep with them sometimes, and he'll just leave them like I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I think I would have been like
So you really liked her for some
if that situation would have happened in like another book, or if there would have been like maybe like. And at least a first, hey, like an acknowledgement. Like, it's like, she had never really even been like, I kind of like you. Like, or like, hey, we should, like, why don't, like, let's just talk. And he, like, him trying to be a bit dismissive about it or something like that. But it was just like, this, like, unspoken tension that just all of a sudden was like, oh, I can't marry you. It felt a bit much.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's what you need. I mean, you look at it, people from Emmons Field.
Yeah.
They're like, Rand and Egwene are like kind of just supposed to get married. It's just like what's supposed to happen. So he just had to shit on that kind of hard in order to kind of.
Oh, he did. He definitely did.
Yeah. What I was reading something and they were talking about like the hammer of pain that Lan just like dumped on Nynaeve there because of the fact that she's not only super reserved but like naturally super reserved. So like her even saying something in the first place, but then. Like kind of reaching out. I mean, it was kind of interesting. I think almost to the point where Lan might have gone too far.
Yeah.
He might have just.
I mean, and this is like right at the point where you're starting to. This is in the Borderlands, so it's right when you're starting to kind of learn like Lan is maybe a little bit more than just some like guard for Aes Sedai. I mean, granted, warders are supposed to be like some of the best.
Best fighters,
but still, like he's really more than just that. Like, and he's an exceptional one. So you kind of start to learn a little bit at that point.
Yeah. So anyway, we meet them, and then we move on. Well, we obviously got to meet the other two core characters in this book. One of them, actually, both of them, pained me a lot in this book in a reread.
Yeah.
So in both of them, by the way, I think Matrim Cawthon becomes one of my favorite characters on the face of the planet. By later
my favorite
books.
character I never read the Sanderson's books, but by the end of the Jordan books, he was my favorite character.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. And then Perrin, the guy.
Perrin takes a long time, but I think Perrin becomes freaking awesome once he's. Yeah,
clearly they both do.
They're both amazing characters, but you get introduced to them, and I think I can't decide who I'm a bit more frustrated with. Matt, like the stuff that I get frustrated with was just him being dumb, which is more just his nature and his character.
Not later though.
Well, but the whole reason that all happened was outside of his control, besides the stealing of the knife.
But that's the problem that really gets.
But I get more mad with Perrin,
who's neglectful,
who is just like
in denial.
Yeah, who's just denial and flat out like, if I don't see it, I don't hear it. It's not happening. Like that. His character, I think, was more frustrating than Matt. Yeah. Even though I agree, they were both frustrating. And you saw, I think, more of Matt's. I felt you got a bit more because was Matt and Rand. But I still think Perrin was more frustrating.
So here's why I thought Perrin. Okay, they're both super frustrating. Yeah. Right. Perrin's super frustrating because he has something super cool. And you're like, dude, like, I don't want to be a dark friend. This is a dark thing, and you already tell. Like, and at some point, you're already communicating with the wolves. Yeah. Just stop. Just like
you're
fucking
talking to us,
it.
and they hate Tolaks. They hate Fades. Like, obviously, it's not a dark thing because. They want to destroy them. They
want to destroy all the dark stuff.
They'll die fighting.
He didn't want to be anything supernatural. But Matt, so here's some good thing, right? So he's getting possessed by the dagger that he was stupid enough to steal.
Yeah.
And It's really tough because for the next half of the book, Shale Ghoul, right?
Ghoul.
I think.
Or no, Shale Ghoul's the place up north.
What was
where the trolls are
this
made?
place?
This is Shadow Goth or
Shadow Waiting is
Shadow Garth.
the name in plain tongue, but I don't remember the.
Yeah, I think it's Shadow Garth
or something like that. But anyway, the thing that's cool about it is I realize how much of his nature is actually awesome. Because half that time he's poisoned by this dagger. It's eating him alive, essentially. Turning him next to evil. And he doesn't leave Rand. He doesn't break from him. He still defends him. He's essentially like the whole way there still like in running from dark frames, like everything. He's still like super loyal, which kind of tells you something about him that's pretty cool. Because even under that intense pressure, which they make very clear in the writing, I think, how bad that is. And you're wondering if it's Matt that you hate, or is it this poison?
Yeah, because exactly like that, like, granted, it was dumb. But that is Matt's character to be like, I'm going to swipe this. Like, so I'm fine with that. And I'm fine more so with Matt because that's a poison that he's losing control of it. Whereas Perrin,
he's just stubborn.
He's just being a pansy. Not a pansy.
I think Matt gets a bad rep. He'll say something, I can't remember what it was. This is some offhand comment. And then, like,
the women.
Ingwin and Naive, like, oh, you think that? You're so dumb. And like, like, dude, you're just, like, talking to me and mind your business.
Yeah. Matt is constantly, like, viewed, like, with shifty eye, like he's like some shifty eyed, like, by all the women in these in pretty much entire story. Inevitably, like, everywhere he goes, it's just like, this guy's a guy you can't trust. But he is like literally like, what the fuck have I ever done? Like, okay, maybe I've released some raccoons into someone's home. Like,
he'll keep his word, and they even admit it. If you get him to promise, he'll keep his word. But he gets a lot of shit that's, I don't think, deserved.
He's mischievous.
Yes.
He's definitely very loyal.
Whereas Perrin, on the other hand, is a smart, like, he's quiet, he thinks things through, and then
he can see all the angles because he looks at all that
exactly
stuff.
And then all of a sudden he's just like, oh no, I don't see it, I don't hear it, I don't want anything to do with this, like with the wolves. Like, that frustrated me a ton, and that's one of the things that sadly takes a long time.
Yeah, even then he still, like, doesn't, I guess I never got that far, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't remember it, but like when he meets up with Elias March, with him and Egwin, and he finds out about he can talk to wolves, and he's like, no, that's a lie, and like he can hear the wolves like talking almost sometimes, and he still call him a liar. Just as a point, maybe the first day, but he keeps it up the whole time.
Yeah,
and the crazy one to the Augustedian for safety, like, even then
when they're in the setting, it's even surprising because he flips out when they kill Hopper too.
Yeah,
even though he's in like mid denial, kind of truly. Oh, like maybe at that point he's kind of like easing in a little bit, maybe.
But throughout the entire series, almost he'll like use the wolves for his own benefit and then deny them. It's like, I need some help. Help me out. No, thanks. Get away from me. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And that really annoys me because the wolves are like so in this series.
They're pack creatures, so they're very loyal.
And they just want to be friends. Like, hey, let's talk, and we go on in sometimes, and they've been happy with that.
And even for them, it's like it's a pretty rare thing, and it's only recently coming back. Even though recent times, like. At least
the barriers are breaking.
Yeah, the barriers are breaking, but there's been a few.
Yeah.
So
slowly,
they're slowly becoming more. But like, it's just like his reluctance to just like want anything to do with it, and whereas I think Matt frustrating, but entirely for an acceptable reason. Perrin more, it's because of his character.
Yeah, and it is consistent, so you got to give him that. Both Matt and Perrin are very consistent characters. They just both get way better at what they do, and they get way better at mitigating their faults throughout the books. You remember that one scene where, and actually it was really well done. It was kind of terrifying. The scene where they're running from the birds.
The crows.
Ooh, yeah.
It's actually, I was thinking about it, it's really well done. It reminds me of that scene in The Lord of the Rings where they hide from the crows. If they turn that into a full feature
Right
movie.
after they got out of the mine.
Right? So they're like, it's like that creepy vibe, but then they have to do it over and over again. And there's even that scene where the crows are like picking apart the fox.
Yeah, they
and
attack
then
the fox.
like later, Perrin is thinking about killing Egwene to not let her die that way.
Because they were right on the verge.
Yeah.
They've been overtaken. And they're like, do I want Egwene to die
By being pecked to death.
or should I just one stroke with my axe and she won't feel anything?
You know, that's all he was thinking about. And he was like, wasn't he like, he was pretty close to doing it in a way.
He was
thinking about it.
He came to the decision that he would do it.
Yeah. And then they got safe.
And they got saved.
Sitting, yeah.
And then he had this whole thing about how that was a terrible thing, and at least a lot. How do you say?
Elias?
Oh, Elias. Yeah.
Was there to like, hey, do you hate her? Like you would have let her die that way?
Yeah, like it's maybe not. It sounds horrible, but you're saving her from the alternative.
Like
Like
he's like, I would have chose that death too if you could give that to me.
Yeah.
Between the two.
And you know what else he said? He said, it's, you know, if you find yourself loving your axe,
That's when you
throw it away. Like,
yeah, because he's like, I should
was
get
so
rid of it.
common.
I think that's a really cool
I really like
point that sticks through with that for the entire time. Because as a like he's this big, huge blacksmith that is incredibly muscular, but is so wary of his
gentle.
strength. Like he even like how they tiptoes around people and so gentle, like moving. Like they'll be in crowds where Perrin, being this giant blacksmith, could literally just like plow his way up to the front, and they constantly describe how he's very picking his way through. If he bumps into someone, he apologizes, being very like cautious, and that's such a good way. Like that is his character, and how that sticks with him and how he develops and how he is. It's like such a pivotal point of who he is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a fun little spot. And then I'm thinking about like how good Robert Jordan sneaks a little bit of horror-esque into the books. Because there's another scene in the book where they're in the ways. And there's the dark
slow
or the
beast.
black shadow or the
Black Wind.
Black Wind.
The Black Wind.
Machine Chin.
Yeah, Machine Chin, that's it. And I freaking love that a little bit because it's really kind of, I don't know, it's really creepy. And there's like whole lines where you're just like suckling blood and licking this and blah,
But
blah, blah. And it's
the
just
whole
like,
way
whoa.
sets that up with it used to be light and bright with grass and trees and fruit.
It's just so
And then
dark now.
It became dark and black and eats the light. You bring light in, it normally illuminates.
Yeah, they were
everything.
like,
it just presses on you. Like,
Yeah, like the
they can
darkness
feel the pressure of
yeah.
the darkness, and it went on for at least 2 days. I don't remember if it was the third or fourth day, and then they hear this wind, and then they're like,
It's coming.
wind, and they rush, and then they hear it, and it's
Kinda
just
getting
like,
closer and closer.
So like, who's supposed to be
Even
like, get
early
out?
on, man, they were finding Urgles in there. Or not Urgles, that's from the other book series. I mean, Trollocs.
Oh,
yes.
dead Trollocs.
Did they
dead
find
Trollocs in there.
Trollocs? I thought they just found the script.
Well, they found
No.
Trollocs that were dead, caught in a trap, and Moraine's like,
There could be
I think
traps
we're okay,
here.
but
Yeah.
there could be traps here. They might be triggered to set off against dark
Dark
forces.
things.
Another book.
No, that was in this.
Oh, was it?
I remember
Oh,
that. Yeah.
I
And
wasn't
then-
sure. I just remember when they found the
I said
stand,
Urgles too. That's from Aragon.
when they found the guiding that they scratched
post-
out
Yeah, they scratch their own stuff.
language
Like,
in it, and
yeah.
they figured out that's how the Trollocs and Fates got the two rivers.
Yeah.
That's how they're coming south without anyone seeing
But
them.
you realize it's still so dangerous to use that because even if you're a dark affiliated with the dark,
You could
that
still.
doesn't mean the ways is
But
gonna.
I'm
help you
assuming
out.
like you send 1,000, you might get 100 through.
Yeah,
I guess
like
if you don't
get
give
some.
a shit, yeah. You
Yeah,
just
for
send-
them,
they
I
send them in
mean,
waves.
they're just creating these Trollocs and stuff out in Shale Ghoul.
Yep, that's true. So that, I mean, that was pretty interesting. We get a little bit of what we're dealing with too in terms of, you know, the enemy here. And then should we go back? I don't know.
Should we just talk a lot about the last two characters and call?
We should do that,
with
yeah.
Egwene and
Yeah.
Nynaeve?
Yeah, let's do Egwene and Nynaeve.
Nynaeve.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
So Egwene, okay, I do like Egwene a lot. Especially these first ones. She's pretty cool. She wants to learn. She's
Very headstrong.
Very headstrong. I get a little frustrated sometimes with how, like, I got frustrated a little bit with how quickly she was just like, I'm gonna go on to like Tarvalon. Like, and granted, like,
why no?
yeah, because
That's what I would want to do.
I know exactly. But the thing is like the whole
You're like, oh, I'm gonna become a wisdom listening to you, and then you're like, oh, I could be an Aes Sedai.
Yeah, I could be like insanely powerful. Oh, I would definitely do it. But so I get her point of view, but also like how like the whole time she spends all this time like, ooh, Rand, and she wants to follow Rand, and she literally left the village just because she wanted to protect Rand.
I thought she left because she wanted to go with the Aes Sedai.
I thought so too. I thought it was a little bit of a both.
Yeah, I guess it was. I think it was more for. I got the impression it was more for Rand.
I was the opposite. I thought she was leaving because she had a chance to become something. Like she wanted to leave. She read the stories
they kind of build that up a
and see the
little
world.
bit that she wanted to
Maybe
leave.
I'm not saying that didn't happen, but
But then how it was just like, I guess she's just like, okay, well, I'm bye Rand. Like, I'm just gonna leave. Because she was just kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna make this decision and I'm going. And I guess he was trying to like talk her out of it.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, there's like some risks and stuff. And
but even
go back to the village with us.
But even like throughout this book, Egwene was like, oh, you can come to Tarvalon and change.
That is
and,
true. I'll be my warder. That's
and
true.
stuff like that. She wasn't abandoning him.
Right.
Until,
Yeah, he
and then
started
she's
pushing
like,
a lot of it.
In the beginning, she was like, Wisdom sought Mary and Aes Sedai sought Mary. But she was just mad at him, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of Green Eye who marry the Waters, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say they seldom
green.
marry, but it seemed to me later that most of them just had many husbands.
The
Or
Green,
many
anyways.
wars. The green, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. The green could have as
But,
many
like,
as they want.
The blue and whatnot, like, it depended on the person.
And it was
the
funny
Waters.
because that's why both. Well, I know Egwene, it didn't work out that way, but they were both Egwene and Elaine later, and you know when we get further in the book series, they were like, I want to join the Green. They all wanted to join the Green because they were like, I just want that freedom to have a man if I want one.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it was more common in the Green, right? In the Green, we're the only group that took more than one warder.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I guess, yeah, she was, I think of the two, she's the least frustrating.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I liked that she was totally embracing it. Like, that would have been me. Like, I would have been skeptical at first. Like, are they really after me? Do I have to go? But once I accepted it, I'm like, let's just do it. And I've been like excited. Like, oh, I'm going to become a mage or a channeler. And
Right.
Yeah.
Aes Sedai. And
I feel like
kind
we
of
don't
fight it
have
every
that old,
step
that
of the
old,
way.
I feel like we don't have that. Like that old mentality. I think Nynaeve wanted to think that, but she couldn't because she was already the wisdom. So she was like,
She was
"Can't."
top dog in a small
Wisdom.
pond.
Yeah.
She was top dog in a
Big
small
fish,
pond,
yeah.
and she was committed. You know, so she's trying to convince herself that she
Yeah.
doesn't want this.
She couldn't commit she was wrong, and that really bothers me, Genevieve.
That's a
They all can't
continuing.
really
The whole series is like
definitely
that.
does.
It never goes away, and it's part of why she has that block on the channeling, and she just needs to learn to accept people that Moraig's not a bad person. She's just secretive and manipulative.
Well, and also she didn't like.
So was she, though.
Yeah,
even still.
that's exactly it. That was the most frustrating thing is how Evine gets. And a lot of the women in the series get very
Later the men
jealous.
too, though.
Yeah.
Men
Rand
too.
has to play his.
But they
point
get
so
they
close
get
to us.
angry at other people for doing the stuff that they do. Like
Yeah.
Naveen is like angry that this woman is just like coming and like taking the villagers, like doing whatever they want, like runs off and stuff. Whereas her as a wisdom, if she just like, she's like, I'm gonna do something. I'm just gonna come and grab this person and make them do something for me. Like that was literally the women council and the wisdoms. Like that's how they did stuff. They just like, I'm just gonna barge in and say, no, you're doing it. Come with me. I don't need to give you a reason. And all of a sudden this
Moraine.
Aes Sedai, Moraine's doing it, and it's like that's just not right. Like,
Well,
the
that's
irony.
That's the
is
defense mechanism.
so
though, because-
frustrating.
And I thought it was well done. I think it's supposed to be there because that is her character. She was top dog, man, and she's got to deal with, and especially when she gets to good old mage school,
being accepted.
I think the concept is a great idea, and I think sometimes it's well done. I think sometimes they go too far to be like, this person's just difficult because they're difficult. It's like, you're putting this person on the edge of just being so stupid and so dumb. Like, right? You get that feeling sometimes with some of these characters.
Get angry at them a lot.
Where you were like, what? Like, I get that there's a glimmer of a reasoning behind this, but it is such a stretch. And you are right now just being so stupid.
That's why we have to bring Billy in and we have to bring Manny in. Because I'm very curious. Because what I find is throughout the series as I'm reading it, Rand and Matt and Perrin are kind of like my boys. And so every time I'm reading it, I'm getting frustrated. Because it always feels like Nynaeve and Egwene are trying to like usurp them or control them or move them here, move them there.
Yeah.
And I get pretty frustrated for a while until Rand literally just gets so out of control, powerful that it's like, whatever, get off my back kind of thing. Yeah. But for the most part, for the books, I'm like, damn it.
The women are frustrating.
Stop.
But I get
I want a different perspective.
Yeah,
I would like, if there was a woman, we could read it with us.
Read what
see what they think. If that's
I've read some blogs from female writers, and some of them feel the same way that we do.
About the women?
Yeah.
Okay. They're like, this is too much.
They were like getting in the way of themselves, essentially, in some aspects.
But I think there is also the opposite side, where sometimes people are like, I'm not going to do it just because you said I should do it. And it's like, if you think about it, it's the right decision. They go so hard in both directions that get really frustrating. I think it's one of the things that I like. I guess it makes you engaged, but it also it's one of those constant frustrations.
They stay in character.
Yeah.
They never break like that. They stay consistent for sure.
She's always angry, pulling her hair, and I know it gets a lot of flack on a lot of stuff online that it's a meme that she pulls her hair or smooths her dress, but that's just like her tick.
Yeah.
Like, if she's angry, she pulls her hair. It wouldn't make sense if she pulled her hair this time or just like cracked her knuckles another time and did 20 different things. She just does the one thing over and over. She's just angry a lot.
Yeah.
And so she's always pulling her hair.
Yeah.
I liked that actually because it was super consistent. It was her tick. Like, you just look and it was like, grab or
smooth the dress. I think the smooth the dress was a bit more of a universal. Like, that's what a lot of the women that got frustrated would do.
Not frustrated, but they embarrassed or
like
something.
A reaction to stuff where they would just like smooth out their dresses, whereas like Nynaeve, it is like the pulling of the hair is her like tick.
But she's also super stubborn, and remember she gets really ticked off at Egwene
for wanting to go,
wanting to go, and also unbraiding her hair. And that's like.
I was really surprised that even unbraided her hair like 2 days into her journey.
I know, right after she gets it done as an adult.
Yeah, because it's funny because that's actually the very first interaction we have in the book is Egwene's point of view as a like 13-year-old and being like,
I thought she was 16.
No, this is before, like 2 seasons before we actually have the story where she's like, oh, I'll get to carry water next year, and then after that, like, I might be considered to get my hair braided, and talking about, like, oh, but then there's some girls in the town that don't get their hair braided till, like, years after that, like, kind of that whole thing, and her, like, it was her dream, like, I'm gonna braid my hair and marry Rand al'Thor and like going out running to see him.
Did you feel that like her dream was actually just always the next thing that was bigger? I thought that's what they were kind of implying a little bit.
That could be.
Like she was kind of always like looking out into the next thing
step.
that she's not. And so I felt
Becoming a woman,
I felt like
and then-
at first it was that because that's what she was aware of.
That's all it was. That was the top
But
two.
but then like as it changed, she's like, maybe I could be the next wisdom. And then as it changed again, it was like, maybe I'll
Go travel. I want to go travel outside the world.
So she's almost had like maybe a personality that was kind of secretly wanting to just always grow. Mm-hmm. And so we don't know how long, her and Rand might have been a thing. Excuse me.
They
But
never left.
yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing too to think about as well for this story at least. It's kind of opposite the roles that you would typically see with men and women. You would almost always think the boys would be the ones who are like, I'm gonna go visit the world, I'm gonna go travel, and the girls would be the one like, no, stay back here and we're gonna like start a family and get married. And then Rand and Egwene go out, and it's like Rand is like, I just can't wait to go back home, and Egwene's like, we're gonna go to Tar Valon, and he's like, let's just go get married. We're supposed to go get married at home.
And that's another
Very
future
different.
forward-thinking thing that I think that Robert Jordan was baking into the story.
And
pretty cool.
It's a very interesting touch, especially when everything else is so much more like. Well, not everything else, but a lot of it's very almost feels like a sexism type thing, men and women, and then he chooses this kind of thing to like swap them kind of a little bit.
Well, I don't think it's just that thing. I think it's random things throughout. Because like I said, it was like his cultural thing.
Yeah.
He put like these type of people somewhere where they're not really supposed to be, where they clearly didn't evolve or where they didn't like adapt. And then he puts like this culture here and that culture there, and what if these cultures mixed, and what if these things were different? I think he was kind of thinking about like, how do you maintain this traditional feel, but then like flip certain things? Like certain things have changed over the years. So, and then we have Nynaeve.
Yeah, she's very frustrating. She believes she's always right, and she can't see, even when she acknowledges that Moyne had a point that the boys were in danger, that they were after them. She's still like, it's all her fault, no matter what. Even though without her, they would have just died or been taken in. And
well, this would have never happened if Moraine hadn't come and like just like
she can't accept
staring
that
daggers at.
She saved them, and she's pretty much given them a better life, like all of them.
Yeah.
Even though it's a lot more risk, like Van becomes pretty much a king. Putin becomes a lord. Matt has an army. Even becomes.
I mean, Rand would have died.
Yeah.
They all would have just died.
They would have been taken too.
Or taken, yeah, and
Yeah.
We don't know, but died or whatnot, and brought back to life in service of the Dark One. She saved them, and Nineveh just can't accept it. She's like still blames her, and she vows vengeance if anything happens to them. Moiraine's gonna pay, not the Dark One, not the
people that are actually doing stuff.
It's this person who's helping them.
The person who made me feel really small.
Yeah.
But that's...
And then she's like, I'm gonna take land for myself after that.
Yeah, and I think
Except actually he'll just go off into the blight and kill
some of it too is like almost a little petty because like she has it
extremely
against
petty sometimes.
so much against Moraine, and it's really all because of the first interaction, and everyone they kind of commented on like, did you hear that Moraine called Naveen child? And she's like, she looked like she was ready to burst a blood vessel when she did it, because it's like she's the wisdom and she's very like self-conscious about being a young wisdom.
Yeah.
And to be like have this woman who thinks so much of herself all of a sudden come in and be like child, and then she's like, I'm the wisdom. Like she didn't even say she's the wisdom because she was just too shocked and probably scared to like really react. But then it's like from that it seemed to be like one of the sole reasons that she's just so angry at Moraine and like kind of using these other things as like excuses to be like, this is your fault.
And I think it's kind of true to her character, and unfortunately why, like the Hitman said, for half the books she suffers from this block.
Yeah.
She might be one of the most powerful female Aes Sedai ever, and she just can't get over these certain little things, and it's part of her long growth.
Yeah.
journey.
And we definitely feel the brunt of that a lot, but what are you gonna do? I don't know. So those are the main characters. So I think we'll take a break, get some refills.
First book, anyway.
And then, and then I think we'll talk about like any kind of outstanding things, topics, characters, events.
There's a ton of events.
There's a lot of events which we got to get to.
And we have one last character we haven't met yet, but we'll talk about him later.
Which one? We're meeting him later. Yeah,
we only mentioned him.
I know what you're talking about. Loyal, of course. Who we do meet later on. In some of the coolest, like there are some scenes that are just super well done. The way that you're like as a farm boy starting to learn about this large world. So we'll get to talk a little bit about that as well. So
Awesome.
With that, we'll take a break. Get some
cheers.
refills. You will be another Cheers.